everybody. Welcome back. It is Wednesday, October the 6th, almost the 7th. It is 11:18 p.m. at the time of recording this. It's been a blast of a September. Thank you all for the support. I really appreciate it for the book. We had a good launch on Clock Tower, and Japanese version of Okidoki Sensei is moving along smoothly. So definitely looking forward to that. I hope you guys are too. We'll see if we can get that out, hopefully second quarter next year. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully soon. So I was doing what I usually do, just going online, watching content, reading not really content, I guess, but, posts on the forums in Japan. I try to be active on them and help people out when I can. And I was going through, I don't know what it was, but there were a lot of marriage threads recently. None of them are ever good. No one ever talks about stuff when they're going good. So I think something to remember if you're one of those people who's on, Reddit or Facebook in one of these Japan groups, and it's always people and their problems. It's because when things are going good, you don't talk about them. It's always when something goes wrong that you're kind of going outward and making these threads or seeking advice and things like that. So always take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but it's definitely a topic which comes up a lot, and understandably so. I got married here back in 2014, I want to say. A wife would probably be angry at me if she heard me say that, and I didn't remember. I think, I was pretty sure. I've been married for 7.5 years, so yeah, okay. Got married here in Japan. I'd been dating my wife for about 1.5 years before we tied the knot. Didn't have a ceremony. We decided to save up and have a really nice honeymoon. We went to Singapore. It was fantastic. Highly recommend it. If you're listening to this and thinking about post-COVID honeymoon destinations, then Singapore is up there. I highly recommend it. Beautiful, beautiful place. Definitely a romantic getaway. 100% endorse it. But, that was, wow, so long ago now. And, we've lived in both countries. So we spent time back in the States, and we lived there for a while, and we lived in Japan, and we're living in Japan right now. So I feel like I've seen both sides of the coin, and I can talk about it. So I guess the first question I would have for any listener who's listening to this, and maybe you're in Japan or you're thinking about going to Japan, or maybe you're here and you're dating someone. The first question is always, do you have to get married? No, absolutely not. I think a lot of people get in trouble here because they rush into things without thinking them through very well. It's weird because you get the two types. You get the guy who comes here and thinks that he's, Casanova and just wants to hook up with everything that has two legs and who will talk to them. It's, and then they don't grow up out of that. And so they end up being, in their 40s or even later, and they're hanging out at these bars with study abroad students. It's always kind of weird. But then you have the other end of the spectrum who come here and, it's, they might start, going out to bars, and they kind of enjoy the young person's life out here. It's fun. It's great. And, maybe they meet someone and they start dating, and then for one reason or the other, before you know it, the knot is tied, and there they are. And marriage is difficult enough as it is between two people of the same culture and language background. It really is. There's definitely great times, and I'm happy for it, but there's also times where it's really hard. When you get married, you're marrying someone without knowing the kind of person that they're going to become. And the same is true for them too. They don't know who you will become in the future. A lot of people like to think that, once you hit adulthood, you're basically the same person and you're just going to be that way forever. But, people go through very significant changes in their later 20s and 30s and even 40s. We're constantly changing. So the person you're married to now might not look similar to what they looked like 10 years ago or however long ago you got married. I think one of those things I was fortunate that my parents told me that, my mom was a psychotherapist, a clinical psychologist, and she would kind of harp on that topic a bit about, choosing a partner and not, rushing towards divorce when things get hard, but really trying to work it out because it's not, it's not easy. But I think a common thread I see with a lot of these is it's they married the first one that came along. Maybe they had good chemistry for a while, and then things fell apart quick. And there's a lot of reasons things can fall apart here. In Japan, one of the really common things I see is, sexless marriages. That's a big one. I know some people who haven't had sex in their entire marriage. It's like the valve shut off as soon as the ring was on the finger. And God, it invariably turns to having an affair because they're ungratified. It's a shame. Other big problems here besides that, I see problems with money. And not in the like, oh, we don't have enough, we have to budget. Not that, because, most people have that. But I think in Japan, it's very common to have the wife in charge of the finances on some level. So you'll have, the husband maybe work a job, bring home the bacon, the money disappears into an account, which she manages, and then he gets an allowance. I hate that a lot. And it's not just because I worked in finance for a long time and I like to handle my own money, but I just don't like the idea of it on principle. And I feel like that's a great example of something you might not know or understand going into Japan and getting married in Japan if you're going that route for whatever reason. It's things like that. That's like a good cultural thing where it's like if you're not comfortable with it, let me put this another way. It's easy to make things clear before you're married. You're like, oh hey, I want this, and this, and I want you to understand this position about me. I'm not a religious guy, but maybe you are. Maybe you go to church every Sunday, and there aren't a lot of Christians in Japan. So maybe you marry someone who's not a Christian, but you make it clear in the beginning that, oh, we're going to go to church, or I'm going to go to church. However you decide to do it every Sunday, it's part of it. And your to-be wife says, okay, it's your faith. You do what you want. And it's one of those things that you're like, okay, I know about it. I want to make it clear. The finance thing, the money pocketing thing, isn't something that might get brought up for a lot of people. I feel like maybe, for a Japanese person, it's something they wouldn't even think to bring up. Maybe it's like, oh, it's so common. This is what we do. Why talk about it? But for the American person, it might be like, whoa, 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 whoa. You want to do what with, you want me to put my money where? What are you doing? That can be a big one, I think. Especially if you're a guy who's more money savvy or into investments, things like that. That can be a tough one. So there's definitely a lot of stress that can come out of an international marriage that you might not even realize before you pop the question. So when I see a lot of these, a lot of these people who are in these threads, and a lot of these people who are already married here, they're already in it. They're in the thick of it. For they got there one way or the other. They're already in it. But and if you're there, you got to work with what you got. If you can make it work, I say always do your best to make it work. Yeah, I don't like pushing people towards divorce for things that are potentially fixable. But if you're not married, let's say if you're just started dating someone here, or you've been dating for a while and you're thinking about getting married, it's really important to ask yourself a lot of questions about what that's going to look like in the future, for just like the cultural differences I mentioned. I brought up sexless marriages, but obviously not every marriage ends up like that, so I don't want to freak people out like that, but I do see that more than I thought I would. And I think it's just most important to, especially for young guys, if you're here in your 20s, just focus on yourself, man. There's no reason to run into these at all. You got plenty of time. If you're 24 years old and you're out here living it up, you go out to bars a few nights in a week, you're having fun. Maybe you get a girlfriend, maybe you're starting to settle down a little bit. Don't rush into it. Take your time, learn about it, and for the love of God, if you're here and your Japanese sucks, don't date seriously someone whose English also sucks. Like, if you're into like one night flings and stuff like that, well, that's great, fine, but it's so awkward seeing couples who can barely communicate with each other and they don't know what the other person's saying half the time. Like, holy shit. Come on, man. It's not that hard. Anyway, I've babbled enough about this, so I will check out. It's been a pleasure here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the books, everyone. It's like I said at the beginning, it's been a real pleasure to be writing for you all, and we'll see what happens. I'm looking at maybe getting a manga out for Okidoki Sensei after the translation, but we'll talk about that later. All right, stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one. Good night.